It's car con carne. Let's eat in the car. It's car con carne. And now here's the star of our show, James Van Alstyne.
So imagine this. After a night out, you pull into your driveway. The garage light comes on. You open the door to the mudroom. Mudrooms are great. The light there comes on. Walking into the house, the kitchen light comes on. Spotify comes alive with your favorite playlist or your favorite podcast. Maybe it's not loud enough, so one button from your phone or tablet cranks it up. Your home is in sync with you. That's what easy automation means. Experience seamless control over it all. Get a quote by visiting easy-automation.net or give my guy Dan a call. Dan can be reached directly at 630-730-3728. This right here is Car Con Carne. I'm James Van Alstyne, and this episode is being recorded virtually. I don't do it that often, but geography was an issue for this one. My guest is a founding member of the band Orleans. He is bass guitarist and singer Lance Hoppen. Orleans returns to the Chicago area, Des Plaines specifically, for a show at the Des Plaines Theater on July 27th. Lance Hoppen. So Lance, this is a really interesting time we're living in. As we're recording this, I'm recording this on July 5th. Tomorrow, I'm going to see Daryl Hall play live. And then at the end of the month, Orleans is back at the Des Plaines Theater, July 27th. What is old is still new. I mean, here you are. The first Orleans album came out 51 years ago.
70, that's right.
OMG. I mean, you were a kid when you joined the band.
I was literally, yeah.
Do you remember at all what your ambitions were back in the day? Did they extend much more beyond a couple years?
From here, extending? Or are you talking when we talk about the early part? The
early days, like when you're a kid, Orleans is just kicking up.
So I came from a musical family. My parents were players. They met on a gig. It was that kind of thing. My mother was very gifted singer and piano player. My dad was a really good horn player. He started a business to raise a family. She kept playing gigs till she was 40, taught students till she was 60. And there were four of us, my eldest sister, and then Larry, my older brother, and Lane, my younger brother. And the three boys really took to it. I mean, Linda she dabbled, but Larry was prodigious. He would play whatever he picked up, he picked up. So keys, guitars. He was trumpet. He was trained on a trumpet. And as was my younger brother, trained on trumpet and a keyboard player. But I was given a clarinet when I was fourth grade. I cried that night, but I played it for the next 8 years or whatever. That was my formal training. But I gravitated to bass. And I had to wait till Larry left the house, really, to not be intimidated. And there was some guitar in the closet, and I picked it up and I started plunking on the low E string and to McCartney lines, and then eventually figured some stuff out. Got into my first band at 14. But my aspiration, I started playing when I was 12. I got into my first junior high school band at 14. My aspiration was not to be rich or famous. It was to be a working musician. That's what I wanted to be. It was very clear about that. And I was hopefully do it with my brother, Larry. And so lo and behold, fast forward, Orleans started as a trio, started as Larry, started with John Hall, actually, recruiting Wells Kelly from the band he was in with Larry, which broke that band up. That's an interesting story in and of itself. But so John and Wells and a couple of guys tried to make a band and couldn't, and then they recruited Larry. So the trio started in February of '72, and I went to see them as a high school senior a couple of times. They were awesome as a trio, awesome. They switched instruments at will, and it always sounded good no matter who was playing what. But they wanted to stabilize, expand, and so I graduated high school in June, and by October I was in Orleans. like that. And then we recorded our first album the next summer. So that was my aspiration, and it was manifested really early on. And then, of course, we climbed the ladder from there.
Mission accomplished. You mentioned plunking along McCartney lines on the open E string. I mean, was that your childhood listening to the Beatles? Is that how you came up as a music fan?
Well, we listened to everything, back then radio played everything. I mean,
right.
It was AM radio and all styles and, whatever was popular, but ran the gamut. So we were influenced by everything from the very white Paul Anka, Bobby Vinton stuff to the Beach Boys to the Byrds. And, as we went on, Motown was a big deal as influences, but we also had folk, Pete, Paul and Mary,
sure,
and classical from training. And then the Beatles came along, the English Invasion, right? And the Stones and Hermits and all those bands, right? But I was really a big Beatles fan, and who wasn't? And then when they hit Ed Sullivan, that was just a seminal night for so many of us in that generation. We saw that, it was like Katie barred the door. That's what I want to do, If they, So from that point forward, it was like, yeah, we can do this. And they still are my favorites of all time. And McCartney's bass playing is very unique in its melodic structures and such. He's not, he's not a slam funk, he's not a jazzer. He's not, but I just gravitated to that melodic. They were just great. What can I say? And he was a big influence, and they were a big influence. So that's kind of core, but there are so many other elements that fed into my style, and also, playing in high school in the band I was in. We had four. I was in the concert band. We had 4 horn players from the concert band and a 5-piece rhythm section, and we would do the hits of the day, a lot of soul music, a lot of Chicago, that kind of thing. And I carried that all forward with me. And then Orleans, John was big into reggae before it was really big, and we were kind of one of the very first American bands playing Americanized reggae, along with R&B and funk and rock and roll, and then eventually Dance With Me, which was very atypical of the mainstream of what we did. But after having had Let There Be Music crack the door at radio, Dance With Me just walked right through. And then that tended to tell us what it is. It pigeonholed us for a bit, in that soft rock thing, as opposed to the harder edges of what we were doing, the funkier, more rock, bar band kind of stuff.
So much of what you said I want to dive into.
Yeah, there's just so much. I'm trying to encapsulate it for you.
I remember, the first time I heard Orleans was in the back seat of my parents' car on AM radio. Mm-hmm. The first time I heard Dance With Me, and still the one. I don't think it can be overstated how important radio was to developing artists back in the day. Here you are in 2024, you're recording for a podcast. You've seen every possible shift in the music industry. You've weathered them all. Do you think for an artist starting today, it's easier or harder to gain a toehold on the world?
Maybe both. I don't know. What we were able to do was hone our craft by playing, 4 or 5 nights a week, 3, 4, 5 nights a week, writing songs, testing them out, developing, and then and labels would let you develop a bit, like they would put if your first album didn't do so well, you could do a second album, and if that didn't do so, maybe do a third album, like that. Right now, but so we were able to develop into whoever we were going to become. Like when I said I joined in, and I was the bass player. That's what I did. I played bass. That allowed John and Larry, who were both guitar players, to start developing the double guitar thing. Mm-hmm. And our vocal style. We had 4 singers now, and so we were able to, do that and do it while we were working and making money. And then we got a record deal, and you get a manager, you go on tour, so all that, and you build a following. And radio is the means to do that. That's how you do it. That's how it was done. Today, it's all, you have a laptop in your home, in your bedroom, and you make a single, and you put it out on the Spotify or whatever, and suddenly you're a hit or not. And there's no common. There's the thing about radio back in the day. Everybody listened to the same thing.
Yeah.
We all know basically the catalog, give or take, of the 60s or the 70s, even the 80s. But then with the internet, everything's sliced and diced. It's factionalized, and there are huge stars. I know nothing about them. I don't know. I mean, I know their names maybe, but I have never heard anything they did, or I never put together that song with that artist, because there's nothing, unless you're into that genre, there's nothing connecting the stuff. So I think to answer your question, you can probably, if you're good at social media, if you have a really hit sound or something, or you're different or unique, you're cutting edge. The Billie Eilishes, that kind, they come out of the woodwork.
Mm-hmm.
Like Tracy Chapman came out of the woodwork, but that was, again, it was radio and it was different. So it's hard to say. What you can't do these days, I don't think, you can't like make a living playing gigs, and then like hit radio. That's not how it's done. It's like the opposite way. I think it started with like Dave Matthews, where he had developed like 20,000 fans or something, and then the record label says, "Okay, that's enough. We'll take you now."
Exactly.
Right. So it's ass backwards that way. So I don't know if it's easier or harder. It's different. Let's say that.
Well, you talked about labels developing bands and growing. I mean, the Orleans experience was not perfect out of the gate. I mean, after the second album, the band got dropped. Right.
We made the first album. We got support from college radio and such in the Northeast, and mainstream radio, and it remains a cult favorite of our fan base. The first album, very funky, very raw. We made the second album in the same kind of mold, but the label hated it, and so they dropped us. And ironically, both Let There Be Music and Dance With Me were on that album. But so when we got dropped, we went back to New York City to showcase again and played this week-long gig, and we got picked up by Asylum, by Chuck Puck, and heard us on the last set of the last night. So the legend goes. I think that's true. It's the story I've been telling a long time. But so he not only liked the band, he heard those songs for what they were, and so he acquired the re-recording rights, and we cut them again. And the difference it wasn't a difference in the song, it was a difference in the production, the presentation, and that's where Chuck taught us a lot. So that was the difference there. And so we did the two albums for Asylum. We had Let There Be Music was a minor hit, Dance With Me was a big hit, Still the One was a bigger hit, and then of course the band had to break up and then go into the story later on.
Hey, my God, the mid-70s, what a moment for your band, Orleans. Dance With Me, number 6. Still the One, number 5. Love Takes Time, number 11. I mean, on top of the world at that moment. Do you have any memories of those days? Like did things just explode? It was just no time to catch your breath, or were you able to take inventory of what was going on?
Generally speaking, I was the junior partner. I was the young kid. I was faking it. I thought it's like these guys haven't figured it out yet, but they were older. They were more accomplished. They had done sessions. They were writers. They had played with this guy and that guy. I was just, the kid who came in at the back door, and they let me in. And as we grew, I was not the lead singer. My voice actually made a difference, but I didn't realize it at the time. But I was just a bass player, you know what I mean? And went and just hung on as we went up. But nobody really noticed me, It was always John and Larry, or maybe Wells, because he was exciting to play. He was a very unique and fantastic drummer. And I just held it together, like quietly. And I never really, so I was very shy, really shy. I was very stoned most of the time. And I went through those years that way. And even when we toured in '76 with Jackson Browne, still the one climbing the charts, Jackson, I loved Jackson. He was like one of my favorites. Did I have a conversation with the man the whole summer? No, not a single one, you know? So that's how I recall those days. I mean, and then later on, we played one of the bigger gigs was like Woodstock '94. We played
Yeah.
for 150,000 people, like, basically in our backyard. I mean, I've had these experiences from, crying when 5 people came and, we were like destitute to that, and it all, and everything in between. So, and the '70s were like, from '72 to '77 was all upswing.
Yeah.
And then John left the band, and then we were like, boom, down, like, boom, down and out. Then we had to rebuild and came back and had Love Takes Time as a hit, right? And that was the second coming. But then everything fell apart. The '80s were, you have to remember, '79, '80, there was an oil shortage, there was inflation, there was labels were cutting rosters and employees, and vinyl was being melted down to be reused because of the oil thing, and people were lining up for gas. I mean, that was the early '80s, and so it really hit us hard, and we took it on the chin and had to kind of rebuild. Like we actually, Larry and I actually quit. We quit in '84. We said we're done, and no sooner had we done that, that Wells passed away. He was on tour with Meatloaf. He passed away. He had a rock and roll death. It was really kind of tragic. But there was a memorial, and I couldn't go because I had a job. I was working, and Larry and John met on stage at the memorial after 7 years of not having played, or all this friction.
Mm-hmm.
And they said, "Wow, this is really good. We should probably do this." And then they got me involved. We made some more demos, and then we picked up the ball and ran from there. So the big scoop out, to the bottom, and then slowly back up. And the '90s were okay, but and on through the story. What's amazing, really, is that here in year 52, that we're working at all, but that. And I'm the last guy standing. I mean, Larry passed in 2012, which was really, that's a whole nother thing we could talk about, but that was cataclysmic, catastrophic. And somehow we resurrected again, and John came back but he retired from the road in 22. So here I am, the kid who is now the elder. Who's carrying on the tradition of the band, playing the band's music, and we're doing a really good job. But it's not the old band, and it doesn't have the benefit of the driving forces, which were basically John and Larry. So, and I make this analogy. I've seen the Doobies recently, right? So they got Pat, and they got Tom Johnston, and they got Michael McDonald, and they got a great band. But the rest of the guys don't really matter. It only matters that Pat and Tom and Michael are there. So they have the benefit of that, right? But if you take them out and just have the band and plug in some other guys, it's not the same thing, right? It's not inherently the same as it was then. So I struggle with that part of it, where I'm the link to the past, but also driving present and hopefully some future. So it's kind of like it's a privilege, but it's a big responsibility.
And again, Des Plaines Theater on July 27th. It's interesting the way music is cyclical in terms of styles finding favor with audiences off and on through the years. I mean, I'm holding this book right here. For those who are just listening, it's the Yacht Rock book, which you are interviewed for. I think there's a real interest in those sounds, those 1970s sounds, those really beautifully produced melodic songs. When I think about Orleans, you were making music that was very different from rock and roll at the time. You weren't Ted Nugent, you weren't AC/DC. You were singing songs, or the band was performing songs about tenderness and romance and vulnerability. really the antithesis of rock cliches.
Part of that was the fact that John's then wife and writing partner, Johanna, was his primary lyricist. Like they wrote together,
Mm-hmm.
but she was the female. She had that sensibility, and she was very literate. She came from a literate family, right? We came from musical families, right? So there was that element, which is you hear it everywhere in the romantic stuff, but also in the intelligent imagery and such. And then there's the kind of social commentary that John would interject, songs like Cold Spell or Power or It All Comes Back, or I mean a lot of stuff that yeah, it was more intelligent, maybe, let's say. It was like higher thought. And there was some dark stuff, but on the whole, the messaging in the lyrics are very optimistic and positive and peace generating and kumbaya, I mean, like that. In fact, when we do a live show of 12, 15 songs, whatever, there's only one song that's negative, like is like minor key, slipping away. It's like I Know Your Love Is Slipping Away. It was from the Forever album, I think. So in a every song being up, positive, blah blah blah, and then there's this one kind of gritty thing, and then it's all fluffy again. So I'm aware of that, and but it's all part of the whole, basically.
Mm-hmm. Thinking about this book again, you're quoted talking about fashion, saying that in general, been there, done that, wouldn't want to do it again as far as the looks of the 70s. Let's talk about the album cover for Waking and Dreaming. The basic theme of the cover is who's ready for the hot tub? Let's go. Well,
the story of that is the label sent us over to Norman Seeff, very famous rock photographer. Sent us to the studio, no concept of what to shoot, just shoot it, portrait, whatever. We were like doing, and he said, "You guys are so stiff. Take these shirts off. Let's see what happens." It's like models are walking around. There's wine. It's like it's all this LA thing, right? And that's what happened. And then so we took our shirts off, and then you got those shots. And you have to understand, it's the title of the album is Waking and Dreaming. So there were shots with all our eyes open, and there were shots with all our eyes closed. And what they did, it was pre-Photoshop. It's called airbrushing. So they took John's head and flipped and inverted it so that 4 eyes open, one John's closed, and vice versa. So Waking, Dreaming, two-sided cover, right? That was the whole of the idea. But all people know is they look at that, they go, "What the hell?" And there was somebody on the internet made the 100 worst album covers of all time.
Oh no!
And we were among that group. But I'll tell you what, we were not anywhere near as bad as most of those unbelievably horrific covers. But we also were the cover of the hard cover book of that. We were on the cover of the hard copy of the 100 worst album covers of all time. And just to finish the thought, at the same time, Pablo Cruz had an album cover where they were all actually naked and kneeling and such, not exposing anything, but nobody ever says anything about that. What's up with that?
Well, it's because their biggest hit was on a different album.
I don't know what and I know those guys, and that's fine. It's just like it's a double standard thing. But anyway, we get a lot of chuckles out of that and conversations, and it's like all press is good press, right?
For sure. Since I mentioned yacht rock, to me it feels like it could be a pejorative term, or just reductive. It doesn't really accurately, like George Benson existing in the same space as the Doobies, as Orleans, seems like a very big umbrella.
Yeah, it's a little wide. I mean,
So
you could say the Michael McDonald Doobie stuff is yacht rock, Hall and Oates is yacht rock. I mean, that's kind of the center of it, I think, right? And then you get other like and Player, who incidentally Peter Beckett's on this show with us.
mhm,
Right? That fits the thing, and I guess to a degree we do as well, you know. But and it's not a bad thing to be included in that. It's just it's just a thing that somebody wanted to make a branding, like a
yeah,
trade, like a thing, right? And so, speaking of Brandy, right? That's a song that falls into that category
it's
as well, right? So I don't mind it. They used to call it soft rock or
right.
MOR, middle of the road, which is a little bit different. We on that score when we had "Dance with Me" as a hit, we toured with Melissa Manchester. That was MOR. Barry
Sure.
Manilow was MOR, right? And "Dance with Me" kind of put us in MOR for a while. Still the One brought us back more toward, pop rock. So it's just, categories, categories, categories. And now even today, everything is even more sliced and diced than it
For
was back
sure.
then. Right?
What does it feel like to play Still the One in the present day and watch the crowd react to it? I feel like it has such a deep connection with people. Like people are able to forget all the BS of their lives when they hear that song. It's just it to your point earlier. It's a positive song.
Yeah. And it's a nostalgia thing with the boomers for sure,
Sure.
because they're remembering, oh, I remember when I was blah, 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 blah. Or I've been married for 40 years. That's our song.
Right.
Or, to a lesser degree, I kissed my first girl to dance with me, whatever. So there's that element of it. And yeah, in the course of a show, people know we're going to play Still the One at the end. And when we do, if they've been sitting, they're up.
Yep.
So it's that kind of thing. And they just connect to it and through it to the band. People, even to this day, they know those songs a lot more than they know who did them. We were
Mhm.
not we were not branded well like the Eagles, you know what I mean? Or that didn't happen. It wasn't the marketing machinery didn't put that stuff together. We were too short at any one label
Mhm.
that anybody could put it together. So say Orleans, and they go what? And I go Still the One. Oh yeah, got it. So that's still the story of my life.
So you mentioned Larry a couple times. He passed 12 years ago. As
Hmm.
people listen to the music of the band or see you on stage at the Des Plaines Theater on July 27th, what would you like them to know about your brother?
There's actually a moment where uh, I take I take a minute to go there because as important as John Hall was to the creation of the band and its a lot of the material and a lot of it, John quit the band 5 times. 5 times. Larry never missed a gig. Larry was there at every part of it. I ducked out for a couple of years to come to Nashville and had to like straddle the fence, but he was the singer of the hits. He was guitar player, keyboard player, melodica player, bass player. He wrote "Love Takes Time." He wrote "Spring Fever." He wrote a bunch of other. He was the backbone, really, the unsung. People said John Hall, John Hall, John Hall, and I get that, and I have every respect for John and his accomplishments and his guitar playing and his singing, phrasing, and such. But Larry had that voice, and that made all the difference. What happened was we didn't know. John Johanna wrote the hits. Larry sang them.
Mhm.
And then Larry wrote and sang "Love Takes Time," which was a lesser than the other two, but that was the magic combination. So when he died tragically in 2012, boy, wow, what do I say about that? John had been out of the band because he'd been in Congress those years.
Right.
The last song I wrote with Larry and Sonny Lemaire of Exile, actually, three of us. It's called "No More Than You Can Handle." It's a song about perseverance in the face of adversity. It's about faith and hanging in there, and all will be okay. Well, that was the last song we wrote in 2010, and then 2 years later, he took his own life. So the irony does not, that doesn't escape me. And so I honor everybody who ever came through this band. There's been about 20 of us, 20 of us. You count them all who came and went. But Larry was key and irreplaceable, you know. So we do our best to fill the gap, fill the hole he left. And I think we do a good job. I mean, you'll hear at the show. Tom Lane, my guitar player, my tenor singer, sounds great. He's great singer. And he brought in his buddy Tony Hooper. He's the newest guy in the band when Fly Amaro had to quit last year. Tony's a great player. So this band really kills it. But it's not me, Larry, John, Wells. It's not that. It's like I said, over the years, guys have come and gone. The band has morphed version, and to where we get to today. So it's an evolution of things, and Larry is sorely missed, as is John. But really, Larry's the one who, you know, if you had to have, you know, he was a guy who could go, like if some other band, like he was in this organization where there was a bunch of hit singers and one backing band. And he could go and he could be Orleans because he had that voice. He could represent, right? None of us can do that.
Right.
And now, ironically, that's what I did. I have a whole nother career of being music director on multi-act shows where with singers of other bands come and represent, and we back them. So it's inverted. I do want to mention, though, again, that on this Displain show, it's Orleans, but it's also Peter Beckett from Player, and we'll be playing those hits, Baby Come Back, a couple other things he does. Walter Egan, Magnet and Steel. So we've done this before, and so they will be integrated, their material, in the course of our 90 or whatever 2-hour show at Displains.
I love it. What a great night. And it's a Saturday night too. I mean, come on.
And we're doing it the night before too in Fort Wayne, so we will have it under our belt. It'll be maybe better.
Yeah, you'll have the Midwest sewn up.
Yeah,
over the course of a weekend.
We should know it by then. Yeah,
I would imagine. So, okay, again, the 27th at the Displains Theater. It is Orleans. It is Walter Egan. It is Peter Beckett, the voice of Player. What a night of music. The fact that we're here talking about Orleans in 2024 is nothing short of awesome.
Yeah. I'm very grateful for it to still be being able to work. I'm 70 years old now. I started when I was 18 in this band. So amazing. Imagine that. I mean, that's totally unpredictable and a blessing. And I don't forget that every day.
And for people who are just listening and perhaps not watching the video, when you say that, it looks like you've reversed the aging process because you do not look like a 70-year-old man.
Thank you.
Maybe rock and roll keeps you young. Maybe that's the secret.
I don't know. It could have been all that pickling early on.
You never know. Yeah, vinegar goes a long way.
Yeah.